Imagine surrounding yourself with incredible women who've overcome challenges, they've rebounded after failures and disappointments, and women who are not afraid to shine their brilliance to make a mark in the world. These women support other like-minded women because they know there is plenty of opportunity for everyone, and that together we really can make a difference, grow our businesses while have fun along the way. This is what Women in Leadership Podcast is all about. Welcome. I'm your host, Anne-Marie Cross. Grab a cup of your favourite beverage, pull up a chair, and let's get this conversation started. And welcome to another episode. So my guest today says, make sure your inner child is not left out in the hallway because he or she is part of you. Joining me on today's show is Ingeborg Mooiweer. Ingeborg is an international pioneer in transformation whose journey from adversity to empowerment has shaped her mission to change lives around the world. Now, despite challenges which included parental divorce, the psychological abuse of a narcissistic mother, she found success in the luxury hotel industry while raising her family. However, her true passion lies in guiding others through their traumas and challenges. With a unique blend of artistic insight and strategic acumen, she fosters deep connections and transformative experiences for individuals and organizations alike. Now, Ingeborg's forthcoming TED Talk and book promise to share her groundbreaking work with a wider audience cements her reputation as a leader in the field of personal and professional development. Now, specifically on today's show, she's going to share why you should learn to trust yourself. She's going to talk about why you should always trust your own instincts and feelings. And if you can, focus on the point you want to go. In your darkest times, there's always a slimmer of hope that things can change, and they will. So welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. What a nice, warm welcome.
Yeah. Oh, look, it's such a pleasure to have you on the show. And I know we're going to dive into and share lots of insights to certainly support people if they have experienced maybe something similar to you as well. But I'd love for you we'll go back to the introduction and the quote, make sure your inner child is not left out in the hallway because he or she is a part of you. Unpack this. Why is this so important?
Well, it is important because, like what I said in the quote, it is a part of you. And working with my clients, I always see and hear and feel that they left that part in the hallway, so to speak. They did that because there was a reason to do that. They couldn't. There was not enough emotional support. There had unmet needs. They had big trauma. And then this part of you is sort of, stepping aside and your survival mechanisms take over. You develop this survival mechanism because you have to cope. You have to go on. You can't leave your parents or caretakers. You have to continue. And that's, it may be put in a silly way, but that's what happens. I'll make it clear to people, hey, you left it in the hallway and it needs to come back to you to get together. And from that place, you can live your life. You make decisions. You have your feelings attached to your own identity. So that's why it's really important.
Yes. And I know we're going to look at the various points that we want to talk about today, and we're certainly going to help people to gain an understanding, particularly if this is something that's the first time they've ever heard that, because so often if there is a traumatic event that has happened, no matter how young or old you were, but as part of your childhood, what we often tend to do or want to do is to not remember it, to not recall it, to ignore it, if you will, to sweep it under the carpet. So from hearing you share that, in your experience, obviously, through your own life, but also the work that you've done with clients, the recognizing of that inner child, not leaving him or her out in the hallway. And obviously you're going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that you recommend we do, is actually going to be a courageous thing. It may be a little bit scary at the beginning, but it really helps in healing and then obviously dealing with something that may be triggering us that we may not even be aware of. Is that what you find?
Yeah. A lot of times in the beginning, people find it a bit woo-woo. Even if you talk about inner child, they can't really imagine. So that's part of the process as well. And yeah, it does take some courage, but it's more because they will have pain. Because that pain, what you said, they put it on the shovel it on the carpet. Imagine it's not there, but it's there. It's stored in the body, and that inner part of you is there as well, and that needs recognition.
Yes.
That's the whole thing. The feelings, the trauma, the pain, the sadness, everything, the anger, everything needs recognition, and that's part of the process. So yeah, the first step is, okay, maybe it's a bit woo-woo, but we have to go there, because otherwise it can't be healed. There's no way it can't be healed.
Yeah, I was going to say the good thing about it, of course, is that they're guided by someone such as yourself, or as an adult now, they've got a lot more resources, don't they, to be able to take back or look back at that situation to be able to start to change those things. I know over the years we've heard a lot of conversation, and I'm sure there's lots of articles that people have read too around this term narcissism. I wonder if someone may not really be aware of some of the things they may have experienced as a young child, that this is also their experience, but they haven't put a label around it. What are some of the things that they may have gone through? If you could just explain that so that they could think, oh my goodness, that sounds like my childhood. Because sometimes we don't recognize something until we hear a little bit about what may be happening, think that's my story too.
Yeah.
What sort of things may have been happening at that time that would show that maybe one of your parents or someone you knew that was part of raising you had a little bit of that narcissism?
Yeah. Well, the main thing is that you are always the one who is in fault. So whatever you did, even if you didn't do anything, it is you who should have done something different, or it was wrong. So you're explaining yourself. You become hyper alert. That's what I hear from most people, and that's what I came as well, because you try to read your mother, father, or the caretaker, to be able to change your behavior so they won't get angry, or you would do good. So that's one of the things as well. Fearful. If you're afraid that they will do something, they have a tendency to explode out of nothing. Whilst you haven't done anything, you don't even know what's happening, even if you're really young. Fearfulness is what took me as well, and it took a long time to get that out of my system. So maybe that's what people recognize as well. And they blame always other people, and they have things happening to them, and they never take responsibility for it, because other people were the one who did that to them, or there was the situation. Well, it was always something else. So that's one of the things, and it's you start doubting yourself because maybe you've done something and they convince you didn't do it. So at the end, you start losing your identity. You don't know what you want, who you are, what your feelings are, whatever, and your feelings are not appropriate at no time. So, and that's some of the things that you can recognize.
Yeah, I mean, when you hear that, I'm hoping that if people recognize some of that, they realize, because the next question then following on from that, if
Mhm.
someone as a child has experienced that, then bringing that into adulthood unresolved, what sort of impact could they expect to be happening in their careers, in their personal lives? Because again, by sharing this,
Mhm.
it may help people to realize, oh my goodness, this is happening to me as well. It shows that perhaps I need to address some of these things so that I can get complete healing from that. What sort of things would be showing up in their lives?
Well, there are two things what I find very prominent. One is the codependency, the people pleasing.
Mm,
In words, that you always thinking about someone else rather than yourself.
mm,
Combined maybe with the hyper alertness, what I said earlier. So you're reading people and you don't want to upset them. So your own boundaries are very weak.
mm.
So people overstep your boundaries. They ask you things you can't say no, because you've never learned how to say no. You've never learned how to meet your own needs, and that, well, they should have done it, but later in life you should meet your own needs, and you don't know how. So
Mm,
you're like this, well, fluffy ball, so to speak. People can do whatever with you
yes,
because your identity is not formed, or is formed in a way that people can use it.
yes,
So this people pleasing and this hyper alertness, that you're always scanning the environment. Is it safe?
yeah.
And that's very tiring, so to speak.
Oh, I can imagine. Because
Yeah.
you're always that. I mean, those are some of the things that may be happening to you psychologically, but from a health perspective, that hyper alertness means you're probably got very high levels of cortisol, which we know that is that fight or flight mode. And if we're constantly in, kind of fight flight mode, or even being aware, being aware, so just in case, that cannot be good physically either as well. So
Yeah.
and that
Yeah.
may bring on a whole lot of other physical
Yeah.
ailments and
Lead
so forth.
to disease. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Can lead to disease as well. Yeah. Yeah.
The good thing is, of course, Ingeborg, and I know that we've spent a little bit of time just unpacking some of the things that may have been happening in childhood that may now have followed us into adulthood. There
Mhm.
is a way to change and heal through that, because you've done it yourself and you've helped many other people do that as well. And one of the first things that you want to talk about is why you should learn to trust yourself. And you said earlier that because of experiences through childhood, you have a tendency to not trust yourself, but that we need to start to learn to trust ourselves. Where do we start with this?
Well, it's a process, obviously. I seek help when I was younger. I do feel and I do think and that you need therapy to get back to your own identity, to the core issue, to build up that identity again, because it's not lost. It's there, but it's very well hidden, with a lot of, well, stuff on top of it, to put it that way, and you need to unpack that. Um, but you need to get to the core. And so rebuild that identity, and learn how to trust yourself. And then coming back to what I said earlier about that inner child bit, that is very important, because it is in the hallway for most of my
Mhm.
clients.
Yes, yes.
And so, yeah, you have to get that little you back in the room and back into your body, and yeah, mend it, so to
Yes,
speak.
yes.
So that is the beginning, and then you start learning that it's normal to trust people, but that's really a lot of trying and doing, really
Mm,
doing, and it's so scary to do that because you've never learned it, and in the past it was always coming back to you. in not a good way. So now you have to learn that most of the time people can be trusted, and you have to use your discernment. And sometimes they'll come back; they're not to be trusted. So that's very sort of thin line as well. It's really
Mm.
like baby steps. Like
Yes.
every change is like with the baby steps, but this one as well. And you really have to honor yourself. And that it's
Yes.
taking some time to get to that point.
Yeah. I wonder, Ingeborg, in your experience, perhaps personally or even through some of the clients that you've worked with,
Mhm.
if they had obviously a childhood that you explained to us earlier, sometimes what we can do in adulthood, we unfortunately attract the type of people into our lives who have similar tendencies because they're familiar to us.
Yeah,
Is that
exactly.
something that you find can also happen too in our boss,
Yeah,
perhaps in our particular spouses or so forth? Because we don't recognize that some of that behavior actually.
yeah,
Have you found that to be true?
yeah. It's true. Definitely. It's well, I would say 99% of my clients. That's what's happening because of what you said. It's like familiar. The mind likes familiar. That's your blueprint. That's what you got from your childhood. So
Yeah.
subconsciously, you think that's okay. That's safe. You think it's
Yes.
safe because that's what you know. Obviously, it's not because it's toxic and things happening and everything. And I'll see people like keep doing the same thing all the time,
Yeah.
going in these patterns in the same loop, and recognizing that what you think is safe is not safe for you, and you have
Yeah.
to learn the other way. In like a love relationship, that is someone who's not like exciting and fireworks and love bombing you with roses and stuff like that,
Mm.
which people like, but then someone who is maybe a bit more quiet, and you know how you have a date and in 2 weeks another date, and people do find that boring because
Yes.
not the excitement and the hyper alertness and things like that. It's you don't have to use it.
Yeah.
um, so yeah, that's what's happening
Yeah.
most of the
Why
time.
I like the fact that you were able to share some of the tendencies and some of the behaviors, perhaps say a narcissistic person with those tendencies would have, is because sometimes you need to be able to recognize them and define them so that you know these are the sorts of things that I want to avoid
Yeah,
if I find that someone else may be exhibiting those. And I think, what I noticed when you were talking about, people perhaps not trusting themselves initially, from some of the other things that I've heard, some narcissist behavior is they love to control things and they love to try and make you feel safe and provide so that you don't have to make your own decisions. And sometimes we can be made safe because they're sharing with us what we should do and what we should not do and what looks good in us and what all of those different things, but
mhm,
not recognizing, hang on a minute, this is, again, not me trusting myself, learning to trust myself, making my own decisions. If I want to wear this dress or, whatever it might be, that's okay. What you're saying is be mindful that some of the behavior isn't, determined by perhaps this person may not be the best person for you and may very well be someone who could be because these people are quite controlling, aren't they? They want to control you. They were going to want to control.
yeah, yeah. That's what's happening. And while you were talking, I just thought I need to just mention this again. That part of what we talked earlier, the your feeling side, to put it that way,
Yes.
the inner child, your feeling side, that comes in that bit as well so much,
Yes.
because she or he, or she, the little one who is mended with you together, she knows.
Yeah.
and and if you tuned in, and in after you do going through the process and everything, you tuned in, she'll tell you, or
Yeah.
he tell
Yeah.
you that it's not okay. It doesn't feel okay.
Yeah.
But in the beginning, you don't recognize it because of the familiarity, what we said earlier.
Yeah.
And most of the times, I'm not supposed to tell people what to do, obviously, in my position. But what I see is that if people do tend to go out and go on dates and try to find someone in the beginning of the process, it's never going to work, because they always attract subconsciously the same type of person. And you see during that process, like towards the end, they start noticing the red flags. And they start
Yes.
noticing, and oh, this is not good. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
And I have to trust
You know
it.
what, Ingeborg? You can not only just have that with partners, you can have that with friendships, friendship circles. You know, that friend that constantly it's your fault and you're running around, and any time that you say
Yes,
no, it's like, how dare you? Right through to even bosses,
every,
leaders, you know,
yeah,
people in the organization. It's like, why do I attract, you know, these kind of people?
yeah,
And that's why if we go back to what you were saying earlier, one of the steps is you know, trusting ourselves,
mhm,
trusting your own instincts and feelings, because when you have the courage to do that, then you don't need to fill that space, if you will, with other people's opinions of you. You know solidly who I am,
yeah,
and I know I trust myself to make the right decisions. And then we can question, can't we, and put boundaries around ourselves when perhaps external people start to want to put their own opinions into our lives as well.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, you don't need the external validation. You have to
Yes.
learn, it'll come from inside. I always said, it's from internal to external, and then you
Yes.
can set your boundaries. But from external, internal, never going to work. Right? They try to fill a void,
Yes.
obviously, and but you have to fill your own void, so to speak. You have to fill your own
Yeah.
bucket. Um, and then you can set proper boundaries and act on it and stick to it and things like that. And then you're not attractive to a narcissist, if you want to
Yes.
take that example, because they can't do anything with you, because you're too sort of solid. You have really proper
Yes.
boundaries. They can't use
Yes.
that. They
No, that's right. That's right. And also too, I think what's really important is that often what can happen is when we're in a group, say a work relationship or a personal relationship with someone who is going to be good for us, if we're hyper alert all the time and we don't trust ourselves, we don't trust our own instincts and feelings and trust others, you know,
Mhm.
when we don't hear validation, we will often go, why aren't they validating me? You know what I mean? It goes the opposite side, doesn't it? So, and you don't want to push away the people because you can often become quite paranoid with that too, and then unfortunately push away those that you want to develop those good relationships with. Have you seen that happen before too?
Yeah, it's a funny thing in that bit where you when the new is not the normal as such, and
Yeah.
you're still holding on to that old pattern. It's
Yes.
there those funny things you just explained are happening there, and that it happens. It's sometimes maybe maybe a strange way to say, but a test as well, to
Yeah.
see if you're really sort of set in your new,
Mm.
or that you still want to hold on to the old. So there is a few weeks, months, in that process where things like that happen. But then if you practice the new becomes the normal, the new
Yes.
normal, and that's what you want. And then safe
And then
is
it becomes natural. It becomes, you know, quite natural to you. And that's why I think it's so important to have someone such as yourself or a close knit friend or circle that you can go back to and explain the situation so that you can get some solid feedback on, yes, that was the right way. Or because sometimes you'll explain some things to someone and they'll give you feedback and you think to yourself, now that I hear you saying that, that makes so much sense. So we don't have to do it on our own, do we? Did
yeah.
you find that as you were going through your own journey from going from adversity to empowerment, that it was the support team that you had around you that was so important?
Yeah, the what I find, because it's sort of funny. I have clients asking me, and because I've been through it myself, it's very easy to relate. The normal. I remember asking a lot of times when I was in their therapy, what is normal? I don't know the normal. And then, like, I have clients now asking me, well, is it normal? And I'll teach them, obviously, what's been taught to me, that inside, if it's good, your values and everything and your feelings, that is your normal. And
Yes.
obviously within reason, within society and everything, but that's what you have to learn. And yeah, I've been asked that so many times, is that normal? And then, the therapist said, well, what we're going to find out, what your normal is, what's good for you. And and that's what's happening with my clients as well. They have to
Yes.
learn it themselves. Yeah.
Mhm. It's so interesting. Today I was walking through the shops, and there was people behind me walking, and I think it was a mother and her daughter, and the daughter would have been in, late teenage years, and they were talking about, what would you do if you won $150 million? And you should have heard what the mother said. We'll never win that. And you know what? I had to do everything in my power not to turn around and go to the daughter,
Yeah.
you can do what, you know what I mean? As coaches ourselves, if we just want to turn, you can just cancel and erase that, because that is just not true. Don't let that become the model of your world. But what you've just shared is
Yeah.
so important, isn't it? Don't let the model of our world that perhaps we grew up in, or that people that were close to us around that time was very much part of their life. Don't let that restrict you from redefining what your model, what's possible for you. And that kind of leads us into the last point. And you say, if you can, focus on the point where you want to go, because in your darkest times, there's always a slimmer of hope that things can change. This in and of itself, I think, is a huge step forward too, because how many of us, when we've set goals, or maybe not even dared to dream, because we don't want to set ourselves up for failure. But as you say, focus on that point, what you want to go to, even dare to dream or say what it is that you want. Walk us through, what are some of the things that we need to do to ensure that we can do this? So that's going to be very much part of the journey to healing and empowerment, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, for me, it's what I said, like earlier, your spirit, or that little slimmer of hope, is always there. That part in you is not gone. You're not lost in that sense. You don't have to, well, find it somewhere external. It's internal. So you have to do the work and find that spot. It's there. It takes some time. It's a process. Change takes time. I've noticed that myself and clients as well, but it's doable. It's doable. Inner healing is doable. You can, get together with that inner part. And then that fire can start, burning, and start dreaming.
Yes.
Because I feel like, in a bigger sense as well, that's what makes human, that we have
Mm.
that fire or that spirit, and that makes us um, seek solutions, do things other, finding, all these things which are happening in our world. Someone has that spirit and that fire, and they start, like, exploring.
Yes.
So it's there. Maybe you need some time to find it, and then keep it small, because that's the thing as well with change. I mean, basically, people don't want to change, because of, like, the way our brain works. We don't really want to change. It's better for the brain to keep it like it is. That's what it likes. But the thing is, you have your own free will. And you can change. You only have to make it, like, in baby steps.
Mm.
But don't start walking. So take a step, a really small one. There's a whole, like, sort of theory behind it. I don't know if it's for here. Yeah, it's a bit maybe too much, but keep it small. But don't
Mm.
start walking. And then there will be sort of setback, obviously, because I had it myself as well. I see my clients, but the thing is, at the end, you'll go that way. It's not linear, but it goes that way, and you go up, and you will get there
Yes.
if you, yeah, trust yourself and if you do the work. Yeah.
Yeah, so important. And I'm so hoping that, people who may be listening or watching or even the recording, if it's themselves or not themselves, that if they know someone close to them that perhaps has had a traumatic childhood themselves, something similar to your experience, maybe a little bit different, but it's certainly something that they brought with them and they can see that it is limiting themselves. And really all of the things that you mentioned earlier about what would be showing up for them in their lives. I hope they realize now that they can change things. They're not stuck like that for the rest of their life. I wonder, for someone who may be listening, Ingeborg, and I sometimes will ask this question because I'm hoping that for those people who realize, and then there's always something in their head, well, it's easy for Ingeborg, or well, she might have been able to do it, but it's maybe not for me. What was it? A point in your life? Did you hear someone talk about change that you even, the seed was planted in your mind that, hang on a minute, I don't have to live like this. I can change. And the only person stopping me is myself. What was it for you that kind of, you grabbed hold with courage and boldness to say, you know what, I am, because I'm worth it and I'm going to do the work to change. Can you recall what that was, or an increment of time and moments? What was
Well,
it?
it wasn't a specific moment, but what I do have found is that on the darkest moments, there was always someone like who came forward, or he or she did like a small thing, which gave me sort of hope. And then I thought, that talking about the trust issue, what we said earlier, that you see, oh, but maybe there are people you can trust. Maybe,
Yeah.
it's not all like dark. And that's, so it's not like one thing, like a pivotal moment or something like that.
Yeah.
But during the time and later as well, because I've been through a lot, there's always something or someone
Yes.
that came forward and did like maybe a small thing, but in that moment was really a big thing for me. And
Yes.
that gives me hope. And then that like that small slimmer of hope started sort of reignite again. Um, and then I continued. And then obviously, once you're in a better state, then you attract better things as well. That's the
Yes.
thing. So there's always something. The
Yeah.
thing is why you have to put off those dark glasses and, looking around and yeah, receive what's been given to you. Even
Yes.
if it's time, or people say, oh, you can talk to me, or people give you some money if you need it at that time, and maybe it's not all you need, but it's something, so you can buy food or whatever. Um, and that gives you hope, that should give you strength to continue, because if it's one, then obviously there are other people who can do that. And that builds your trust again in rebuilding your life.
Yeah, and how good it was. And I love that you said that, because it goes back to also what you shared about how do you make those changes, set goals, one step at a time. And it was that one trustworthy person and another and another and another that slowly
Yeah,
built up your trust in others. And as you say, you start to change the lens through which you look at
yeah,
life, don't you? And so often we can be jaded
yeah,
through things, and we wear the jaded glasses and we can see all of the things that are going wrong and negate and unfortunately don't see all of the things that are around us that could certainly make an impact to us. So I'm so glad and thankful, not that you'd had gone through that experience, let me just say that, but the people that I have the pleasure and honor to speak to on the show often have gone through experiences themselves. They walked a hard journey, hard mountains and valleys, but they've been courageous enough to go through that, and now are saying, you know what, I'm going to make a stand for others so that they don't have to go through all of the different things that I did, but their progression from adversity through to empowerment and embracing that life that they do love far quicker. And I know that that's exactly what you do with clients too, Ingeborg. So share with people how they can get in contact with you. What is the best way?
Yeah, well, they can find my website. They can contact me via my website, www.metamindbreakthrough.com. They can find me on LinkedIn under my own name, Ingeborg Mooiweer. And those are the two main channels. I'm on the socials as well, so I'm on Insta and Facebook. It's all like under my own name. So that's, well, maybe it's not an easy name, but it's easy to find, I would say.
We live in a global society, and so I'm sure you work with people from around the globe.
Yeah, I do. Yeah. I do. Yeah. So I'm used to different kind of names, but I experience people find my name very difficult to pronounce and everything. So, but it's
a wonderful name. It's one we won't forget. We shan't forget in a hurry, that's for sure. And again, thank you so much for sharing your story and being courageous and to be able to share that with others so that they too can, as you said, go from adversity to empowerment, because I think so many people are struggling through life when really they don't need to. And it's wonderful that you can support them in that area. So please reach out to Ingeborg, find out more, have a chat, connect with her across all of the socials. And no doubt she'd love to hear from you as well. So thanks once again for coming on the show.
Yeah, thank you very much. Really nice to be here.
Hey, it's Anne-Marie. Before I go, are you a coach or a consultant who feels like the world's best kept secret? Your experience is vast, yet secretly you're frustrated because despite all of your hard work, you're just not getting the visibility, the recognition, or new clients you'd hope for, and you don't know why? I've created a free resource that'll help you build visibility, generate leads, and enroll dream clients with ease, because you're seen as a trusted authority, even in a crowded marketplace. And you've positioned yourself as the choice versus just a choice for your dream client. To get started, go to annemariecross.com/gift. That's annemariecross.com/gift.